All right, guys, we are going to be starting our final unit of the year, and we are going to be studying the play Cyrano de Bergerac by Edmond Rostand. Okay, and today we are going to be going over Act 1. Now, originally this play was written in French, but don't worry, I'm not going to make you read it in French. So, like I said, Cyrano, that's what we'll call it, right, for short. Cyrano is a play. So that means it's a form of drama, and that should be familiar to you guys. It's been one of our lit terms this year, and that just means that this piece of writing is meant to be performed, right? So like on a stage in front of an audience kind of deal. And plays are broken into sections called acts, right? That's one of our new lit terms. And an act is just a large section of a play, kind of like a chapter in a novel, right? So today we're going over Act 1. There are a total of 5 acts in Cyrano. So Act 1 opens up, and the setting is the Hotel Burgundy in 1640 Paris, France, right? So this is taking place a long time ago in the past. And there are a bunch of different types of people waiting for this play to start. The play is called La Clarisse, and you've got people from upper class, middle class, lower class, everybody, right? So some examples. You've got marquises there. Those are noblemen. They are from the upper class. You've got musketeers or soldiers or cadets, right? They're kind of that middle class. They're there. You've got pickpockets roaming around, kind of stealing from people. And there's also this girl going around, an orange girl. She's not actually orange, but she's selling people food and beverages, before the play starts, right? So all of these people are just waiting for the play to begin. Now, we focus on, at the beginning, Lignier and Christian de Nouviette. Okay, so Lignier, the wine bottle guy, he is a writer, a satirist. Okay, so he kind of writes things to make fun of people, but he also is a drunkard. He kind of has a drinking problem, right? And he is friends with Christian, who is super handsome. He's a new cadet. He's new to Paris, but he's not super intelligent, right? All he is his looks, okay? And they're standing around, and Christian is looking around all over the place because the woman that he's super into is supposed to be at this play, right? She comes to the plays a lot, so he's hoping that he's going to get to see her. And then as they're kind of waiting around, seeing if she's going to show up, waiting for the play to start, we are introduced to Ragueneau, who is a pastry chef in the area, who has a really deep love for poetry. So much so that he is actually willing to trade his pastries for poetry. So like if somebody comes in and brings him a poem, he'll like give them donuts or tarts or whatever. Okay, like makes me wish I was a poet because I would totally trade somebody donuts for poetry, although I don't write poems. So they're standing around, and Ragueneau is like, he's super agitated. He's kind of worked up because this guy is going to be acting tonight who has been told he should not get on stage for like the next month. He's been forbidden. And the actor's name is Montfleury, and he was told by Cyrano, who we have not met yet, like, dude, you better not act for the next month or else. Okay, so Christian is like, who's this Cyrano guy, right? He's new to the area, so he has no idea who this guy is. And like Lignier and Ragueneau are talking about Cyrano like he is just the bee's knees. He's just this stud, right? They say he's a poet, he's a swordsman, he's a scientist, he's a musician, like he's all of these things. We meet Cyrano's best friend, Lebray, who is a fellow soldier and Cyrano's like bestie, right? And Lebray describes Cyrano as the most delightful man under the sun. So while we haven't met Cyrano, we're learning a lot about him, right? We also learn that his one major flaw, if you will, is that Cyrano has a big nose. And when we say big, we're not like, oh, yeah, he's kind of got a large nose. Like, it is huge. Like, you can't not look at it. Huge. So all of a sudden, they're standing around talking, and Christian spies the woman that he's been waiting for, right? And he doesn't know who she is. And so Linier, he points him out, or Christian points out the woman to Linier, and Linier's like, oh yeah, that's Roxanne, right? Come to find out, everybody loves Roxanne. You'll find a few more people that we're going to talk about here who love Roxanne. She's young, she's beautiful, she's an heiress, so she's like got a lot of money coming towards her. And she's sitting in this box, right? So the boxes are like these bad boys up here. Because she's wealthy, so she can sit up there. And she's accompanied by this older guy named Comte de Guiche. Okay, and you can tell by the image that I've chosen for him, he's not a good dude. Okay, he's older, he's married, and he also loves Roxanne. Ew, right? So we also find out that the Comte, right, he wants to be with Roxanne, but because he's married, right, in his fantasy world, he'd be with Roxanne, but he can't because he's married. So he's like, ooh, I have a plan. I'll have my buddy, the Vicomte de Valliere, who we're just going to call Valliere because it's easier. He's Guiche's kind of lackey, or he does his dirty work for him. He's like, I'll have my buddy marry Roxanne so I can still have access to her, which, ew, gross, not okay. But that's just his fantasy. Roxanne's like not going for it. But that's kind of what he's trying to do. So now, after Christian learns this, he's like, oh, heck no, I want to fight this Valliere guy, right? So he's like, I'm going to challenge him to a duel. But as he reaches in his pocket to grab his glove, which he was going to like slap Valliere with, he realizes he's getting pickpocketed. Could you imagine reaching into your pocket and like somebody else's hand is in your pocket and it's not supposed to be there? So Christian's like, what? But the pickpocket's like, no, please, like, don't hurt me. I've got some information that you might really want to hear. Okay. And Christian's like, all right, what could you possibly tell me? And what he learns is that Linier's latest satire, right? Like his latest writing has really offended somebody super powerful. And this powerful man has arranged for Linier to be ambushed later that night on his way home by 100 men. Okay. Now, I forgot to mention, Linier left when a little earlier. Okay. So he's not like standing right here hearing this. So Christian's like, oh crap, I've got to go tell Linier, because Linier went to the inn to keep drinking. Right. So exit Christian. So as Christian leaves, people are getting amped for the play to start. The lights start going down, right? You can tell that it's about to get started. And people who have heard are kind of like, I wonder if Montfleur is going to act, right? That's the guy who's not supposed to be acting. Well, come to find out, guess who takes the stage? Montfleur. He's the guy that's not supposed to act. And he starts reciting some of his lines, and all of a sudden from the audience, a nameless figure yells, haven't I ordered you off stage for a month, you wretched scoundrel? And Montfleur is kind of taken back, but he tries to say his lines again, and every time he tries to start saying his lines, the heckler interrupts him, right? And this happens a few times until all of a sudden, come to find out, boom, it's Cyrano. He's been in the audience the whole time waiting to see if Montfleur would try and act, and he did. So Cyrano calls out Montfleur, and he's just like kind of berating him, telling him, I told you you couldn't act. Like, the crowd is starting to get angry because they're there to see a play. The manager of the hall where they're acting is like, dude, what about the money I'm supposed to make? Like, you're ticking off these customers. Like, how are how am I going to pay for this? And so, like, as Cyrano is yelling at Montfleury, he like throws this bag of gold at the manager, whose name is Bellerose. Like, here, this should cover it. And he keeps on, coming onto Montfleury, like, you got to get out of here. Well, De Guiche is getting annoyed, and he tells his buddy Valvert, like, go deal with this situation. So Valvert comes in, and he insults Cyrano's nose. Okay. So, and he doesn't really do a good job of it either. His insult's like super lame. He essentially tells him like, hey, you got a big nose. And Cyrano's like, yeah, no duh. And then Cyrano, who is like wicked smart and really good with words, is like making fun of Valvert, and Valvert gets super mad. And so he challenges Cyrano to a duel as well. Like, everybody duels in this thing. It was like really popular back then. So Cyrano says, okay, I accept your duel. I'm so good. Like, I'll even invent a poem as we're dueling, and I'll kill you as I finish the poem that I'm inventing as I'm killing you. Cyrano really just has so many talents. So they're dueling, and Cyrano is creating this dope poem while they do it. The crowd is loving it, right? And on the last line of the poem, Cyrano defeats Valvert. He wounds him, he doesn't kill him, and like the crowd goes wild, right? And after the fight ends, Valvert kind of like limps off, and Lebray and Cyrano are standing around talking, and Lebray really like tells him like, dude, you're not making friends this way. And Cyrano's like, I don't really care. I don't mind not making friends. Like, it makes me happy to tick people off. And Lebray's like, all right, well, let's go get some food. And Cyrano's like, well, I can't. I don't have any money. And Lebray's like, well, what about all that gold you just threw at the manager? And he's like, yeah, that gold was actually supposed to last me like a month. So, like, part of you is like, oh, that was so nice of him. And then the other part's like, wow, you were really foolish. But the orange girl comes up to Cyrano because she's just like super impressed with his fighting and his poetry. And she offers him some food. And Cyrano's a little prideful, but he doesn't want to disrespect the girl's offer. So he accepts, but he only accepts one grape, half of a macaroon, which is like a cookie, and a glass of water. Okay, like, that's hardly any food, but that's all he's willing to accept from her, right? So that he's not saying no, but he's not like taking advantage of the fact that she offered him stuff. So again, Cyrano is reminded by Lebray, like, dude, what's going on? Why are you starting so much trouble? Like, this is really bad for your reputation. And Cyrano confides in Lebray, because he's his bestie, that he's really got some deep insecurities about his nose. I mean, like, look at that bad boy. I told you, it wasn't just a big nose. It was like a big nose. And he tells Lebray that, like, the reason why he hates Montfleury so much is because Montfleury flirted with the woman that Cyrano loves. And Lebray's like, what? You love somebody? Like, I'm your bestie. And then all of a sudden it clicks. Oh, let me guess. You love Roxanne. Yup, Roxanne. Again. Now, quick side note, Cyrano and Roxanne are actually cousins, but one, they're like distant cousins, and two, it was like really common back then, kind of like Poe and his cousin got married. So try not to let it weird you out too much. Just think of it as like it was a really normal practice back then. But yes, Cyrano is in love with Roxanne. Because come to find out, not only is she super beautiful and like wealthy, but she's also really smart. So, he says, I love her, but I am afraid of telling her I love her because I know that I'm ugly with my nose, and that I worry that I'll tell her that I love her and she'll laugh at me. So as they're talking about this, all of a sudden, Cyrano is approached by Roxanne's duenna, which a duenna is like a nursemaid. So back in the day, women couldn't just like walk around by themselves. So it's kind of like this maid who followed her around like a nanny to make sure she stayed out of trouble. If you've read Romeo and Juliet, it's kind of like Juliet's nurse. And she says, "Hey, I have a message for Cyrano. Roxanne wants to see you. Um, like, will you see her?" And Cyrano's super stoked, but also like a real little bit nervous. And he's like, "Sure, I'll go visit her tomorrow at Raganou's shop at 7 o'clock in the morning." And so Duenna's like, "Cool, she'll see you there." And then in comes Linier, and he is super worked up. He's like, "Cyrano, I just found out there are 100 men waiting to kill me, like because of some stupid stuff I wrote about this powerful guy. I guess he got upset. Like, can I stay with you tonight?" And Cyrano's like, "Nah, bro, you can't stay with me, but don't worry. Like, I'm gonna defend you. You're good." And that is the end of Act 1 of Cyrano de Bergerac.